Nanti yukikazi nitaipatimia iba kabisa.
Jai Jinendra Badane. On behalf of Oshwal Business and Professional Network, OBPN, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you all on this lovely sunny evening. My name is Smita Shah. I'm a trustee and executive committee member of the Oshwal Association of the UK. As well as leading the OBPN portfolio, I'm also a committee member of Enabling Network. Today's webinar is the first in a series focusing on different careers, starting with science, technology, and mathematics, STEM, to help and inform both young people and parents on options about various career choices. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Rajvee Punatar to talk about her life as a scientist. Rajvee is also a trustee, and I'll let you tell her more about herself and her career. Before I hand over to Rajvee, I'd like to say that if you have any questions, please wait till the end and, put them in the chat and Rajvee will answer them at the end. Over to you, Rajvee.
Thank you so much, Smita, and hello, everyone. I'm really happy today to come and give this first of the career talks on STEM subjects. And so what I'd like to do, I'm just going to start sharing my slide deck, and hopefully this will work. I hope everyone can see that. Okay, Smita, can everyone see that? Yeah, okay. Great. As Smita has said, My name is Rajvee Punatar. I'm a scientist, and today I'm going to talk to you about my career in scientific research. And for those of you who are or who have children who are doing science GCSEs and science A levels, or perhaps even doing undergraduate study, if you are thinking about a career in scientific research, what that entails and what you need to do to help you get on that track. So, hang on a minute. Okay, so that's me in my lab. I'm a biochemist, and I'm just gonna, oops, sorry. Did I just lose that? There we go. I'm just going to minimize this screen a bit here that I can see everything. So I'm a biochemist and molecular biologist. So the sort of things that I do day to day are DNA cloning, mutagenesis. I purify proteins. I look at DNA protein interactions and a whole host of other things. And my title at work is I'm a principal laboratory research scientist. So how did I start on my journey? In the talk, these are the different things I'm going to cover in my talk. So what made me become a scientist, what I do day to day, a little bit about where I work and my projects. Then I'm going to talk about why I love being a scientist and what it takes to be successful. Then I'm going to talk about work experience, placements and internships. It'll be very useful information for all the students out there. And then there are scientific careers that you need a science background, but you don't need to work in a lab. And then there are other careers that you can do that it's really useful if you have a science degree. And I'm going to just cover those as well. So I'll just first start with my own academic journey. I did A levels in biology and chemistry and mathematics. I then did an undergraduate degree in biotechnology at the King's College London. Now, this degree was really interesting. It was a 3-year degree, but it included an optional placement year in industry, which I actually found really useful. I went to work for a company called Ciba-Geigy, which later became Novartis. And it was here when I was supervised by an excellent scientist and was working in a lab that I realized I really loved academic research. I then decided to do a PhD in biophysics, and that was at the University of London, jointly with the Hammersmith Hospital. After I got my PhD, and this is a very common thing for a lot of academic scientists, you then do something called postdoctoral fellowships. So it's after your PhD, but you're still training. And I did a fellowship with Cancer Research UK for 4 years, and then with the Medical Research Council for 4 years. Now, for many scientists after this point, if you're very ambitious and you've been really successful, one of the things that you can do is to run your own research lab. But for me, I decided not to do that, but I did want to join a really good lab as a scientist. So I joined the DNA and Repair and Recombination Laboratory of Dr. Stephen West. And actually, I've been with him ever since. So this is Steve. He's a principal group leader at the Francis Crick Institute. And he's a leader in the field of DNA repair and has been for over 30 years. He's published hundreds of papers. He's frequently invited to speak at major international meetings. He's a fellow of the Royal Society, which is one of the premier societies for scientists in the UK, and it's renowned around the world. He's also won many awards. He's also a lovely guy, so I'm very lucky to be able to work for him. So what do I do in his lab? So I have a multifaceted role. I'm a scientist, so I have run my own research projects. And then when the results come out really well, I can publish papers. I also help Steve with the day-to-day management of the lab. I train and supervise PhD students and other postdoctoral scientists. I give seminars and talks about my work, and I attend conferences in the UK and abroad. And then I have other institute roles where my experience as a scientist comes to the fore in terms of training and development for scientists, consultative staff forum. I work a lot with radioactivity, so I'm also do a lot of health and safety work as well. So where do I work? So this is the Francis Crick Institute. This is where I work. And it's one of the largest biomedical research facilities in one building in Europe. It was at one time the largest, but no longer. It opened in 2016. It's got around 2,000 staff, over 1,500 of which are scientists. And the scientists are from all over the world. So we have 70 nationalities working there. And in terms of research groups, there are about 120 research groups that all have their own specific area of medical research that they are investigating. The building itself is located opposite St Pancras International at King's Cross. And it's a place where members of the public can come and explore. We have free exhibitions. We've got an excellent one right now, which is about the brain. It's called Hello Brain. And it's interactive. There's a little cafe there. It's free to come. You can just come in to the reception and go and have a look around the exhibition. I would encourage people to come if they can. It's suitable for children as well. But just check the opening times on the website before you do so. So what do we do at the CRIC? So the CRIC is a biomedical research council. We study all the different types of human diseases. So there's cancer, there's heart disease, there's neurodegenerative diseases, so diseases of the brain like Alzheimer's and dementia, strokes, and then a whole host of infectious diseases, malaria, TB, HIV, of course, COVID. And we also house the World Influenza Centre, which helps design the flu jabs. So they've already just designed what's going to go into the influenza vaccine for next Christmas sort of winter. So rather than me show you slides, I thought I'd show you this short video about the Francis Crick Institute. And it's narrated by our director. His name is Sir Paul Nurse. He's a Nobel laureate. So Nobel Prize winners, if you have a Nobel Prize, it's an international, world-renowned prize that's given to very, very few people who've made very important discoveries in their field. So he's narrating it, and I'll just play the video now.
The Francis Crick Institute is a brand new biomedical research institute which will investigate the basic biology that underpins human disease.
We've got this 21st century biomedical research facility in the heart of London.
It's a grouping of the most exciting science. We work across disciplines and across boundaries. So we have a huge amount of biological science, but we also have chemists and physicists, mathematicians, all of whom contribute to a new way of working, a new way of answering biomedical questions.
Francis Crick was probably the greatest biologist of the 20th century from the United Kingdom. If Francis came in here, I think he would think the building was very big. Scientists get inspired by the creation of knowledge, by understanding how the world works.
We're explorers in the same way as astronomers looking out into space and looking at faraway galaxies, but we're focusing down on the smallest of scales.
I think that curiosity of, okay, well, we know this happens, but how does it happen? Wouldn't you like to know?
Sometimes I look at what's been achieved here and I can't quite believe it. To actually produce what is probably the most advanced and interesting and exciting biomedical research laboratory in the world. A cathedral of science that will push back the boundaries of our understanding to help society tackle and deal with human disease. Welcome to the Crick.
So I hope you all enjoyed that video. And yes, the building really does look like that from the inside. And if you do come and visit to see our exhibitions, you'll actually see the same view. It really is amazing. So I do encourage you to come and visit. Okay, so now I'm going to just talk about my own research project. So this will give you an insight of the type of questions that we ask and the type of work that we do. So I work, as I mentioned before, in the DNA repair and recombination laboratory. And before I talk about what I work on, I want to talk about DNA and genes, and then the relationship between DNA, genes, and cancer. So DNA, as I'm sure most of our science students will know, stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's a long molecule and it contains each person's unique genetic code. And the diagram there on the left is just a schematic showing what DNA looks like. And at the very molecular level, it's a double helix. So it looks like a ladder that's been twisted round. And each one of our cells, we have 2 meters of DNA if you had to unravel it all. So it has to be packed down really tightly, and it's packed into what we call chromosomes, which look like little X shapes, which is on the blue there. And we all have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So half of our DNA comes from our mother and half from our father. And DNA is divided into sections, and those sections are what we call genes. Now, we have about 25,000 genes, and that's for humans. And some of our genes control how our cells in our bodies divide and grow. So now I'm going to talk about cells. So we have more than 100 million cells in our bodies. And the position and growth of our cells is tightly controlled because we have different types of cells, right? Eye cells, cells in our eyes are different from our skin cells, that are different from our liver cells. And they all have a position and a shape and a space that they need to take up in the body, but no more. So if the cells start to grow and multiply out of control, this is when they form a lump, and we call that a tumor. And why would this happen? Well, this can happen is if you have a faulty or a missing gene, which we call mutations in those genes. And the question is, how do we get mutations? So this is what we study. We get mutations because a lot of mutations arise from DNA damage. So this is another schematic I'm showing you. And the thing that looks like a flying saucer in the middle is a cell. Unraveling out of the center of the cell is the DNA, as you can see. And what you can see there with the arrows are the different types of DNA damage that can happen. You can have breaks, you can have bonds that shouldn't be happening, which we call cross-links. You can have missing bases. And the amazing thing about this is you would be surprised how often that they happen. So in a single cell, in a single day, the DNA in one cell suffers from tens of thousands of these types of damage. And this can be caused by chemicals in our food, UV light, so sunlight, X-rays, radiation, and just normal processes that happen in the cell every day. And therefore, we need to repair all of these, because if we don't repair them, it can lead to cancer. And also, it can also slow down aging as long as we can repair them. So what I study, or our lab studies in particular, we're interested in a type of break in the green called a double-stranded break. So here's a little picture again with a double-stranded break at the top, and repair of these is absolutely essential. And it's a very complicated process. It's multi-step, and it's a process called homologous recombination, and that's what we work on in our lab. And the thing is, there are genes that control part of this pathway. One of them is a gene called BRCA2. Some of you may be familiar with it because it's associated with breast cancer. But the thing about BRCA2 is if there's a mutation in this gene, so that's, I've turned it red because it's no longer working, then the repair doesn't happen. You don't repair the double strand break, and this can lead to cancer development. And you can actually see this in people that have a BRCA2 mutation. So this is a microscope slide here on the top right-hand corner, is showing you the chromosomes in our that come out of our cells. And what you might be able to see with little blue arrows are breaks in the DNA, and that is literally a double-stranded break. And mutations in the BRCA2 genes can lead to these double-stranded breaks and lead to breast, ovarian, and other types of cancer. Now, the thing is, I told you that this pathway of repair actually is complicated, and it involves many, many genes, not just BRCA2. These are some of the genes. It's still not all of them. There's hundreds and hundreds, but this is a major subset, and we work on all of these in our lab, and I have worked with all of these genes and the proteins that they make in the lab. We try and understand what they do, who they work with, what they're controlled by, and we also find new partners for them. And we also look at what they do at the DNA at the molecular level. And when we find out all these results, we publish our findings in papers. So in journals, nowadays everything's sort of online journal, you don't get big books anymore, but the publications are the currency of science. And the more publications you have, and the more publications you have in more prestigious journal, that is how you are assessed as a scientist, as how good you are. So this is one of my papers. There's the title at the top, and then I present the data, which looks like this. I present my results, and then this gets published. So what I just wanted to point out, I don't know if you can see on your devices, but the first name is mine underneath the title. That means I've done the majority of the work. The last name is the name of my group leader. So it's like an address, so everyone understands it's come from that lab. And all the people in between are people, other scientists in our lab that have helped me and contributed to this work. So why do I enjoy being a scientist? So this is my list, okay? First of all, it's intellectually challenging. You're pushing the frontiers of knowledge. You're constantly acquiring new skills and knowledge as well. So you have to keep updating everything you know. You get to work with the brightest and best from all over the world, which is really exciting. It's not a desk job. You do work at the computer, but most of the time I'm on my feet, and I have flexibility and freedom in organizing my time. And I would honestly say no 2 days are the same. And even after all these years, I still get a thrill from making new discoveries. And ultimately, I really believe I'm benefiting society and making a difference, which, gives me a really good feeling. So these are the people I work with in my lab at the moment. They tend to come for 3 or 4 years and then go back to their countries or move to a different country. And as you can see, there are a few of us from the UK, but there are a range of them from all around the world. And they're all lovely people, and they're brilliant scientists, all of them. So what makes successful scientists? You have to be curious because you're asking questions about how things work. You have to be analytical. You have to be able to objectively look at your results and come up with, interpret them in an objective way. And you have to be creative because sometimes you have to find different ways of asking the same questions. You have to come up with new ways of doing experiments. You have to work with other scientists, as I showed you. You have to be patient and tenacious. The reason I say that is quite often a paper takes 3 to 4 years in the making. That's how long it can take to get a paper. And you have to be open-minded because sometimes the theory of what you think you're studying, the results may show you something different, and you have to be prepared to say, actually, I think that was wrong. I need to think a different way. So ultimately, scientists are critical thinkers and problem solvers. We have to be good communicators because we have to present our work. We have to publish papers and write them. We have to be able to change and adapt. So if you're interested in a career in scientific research, what do you need to do? Well, work experience is a really important thing to do. So you can try and get work experience in research labs because they offer hands-on experience. So you can find out whether you actually like to work with your hands. There are hospital and healthcare settings that can give you insight into clinical practice. Then there's pharmaceutical companies and food manufacturers where you can see the commercial aspects of science and development. You can volunteer, perhaps at a science museum or a festival. There are things that summer internships where you can go for like a few weeks over the summer holidays and perhaps go and work or work shadow, and you can get little projects. And I'll go into how you can find these opportunities in a bit. And then there are longer placements called industrial placements. That's what I did during my undergraduate degree, where I spent 1 year working in a lab in a pharmaceutical company and often integrated with your degree. So all these are ways that you can find out what being a scientist is like, and more importantly, whether you enjoy it and whether you're suited to it. So where do you find work experience? So here is just some of the different places that you can find it. Obviously networking. So if you've got friends, family, or acquaintances that work in science-related fields, you can go and talk to them and find out if you can come and work shadow them. So the work experience listed here, I guess, is a little bit more suited to people doing GCSEs. Then your school teachers and careers advisors may be able to help you in your schools. And then there are specific programs. So I've mentioned a few here, the Nuffield Research Placements, the Into Science UK, or the brilliant Blizzard Institute Work Experience Programme. These all have places that you can apply and try and get work experience when you're quite young. And then the other thing is a lot of organisations, universities and institutes might have information about what they do on their website. So check their websites and get in touch with them, email them. Now, placements and internships, maybe this is something more you want to look at for when you're doing A-levels, or perhaps you're at a degree level. So if you're at university, you have a careers service. There are online resources you can look at, and you can search under the term placement and internships. Some organizations, for example, the Francis Crick Institute where I work, we have summer placements, we have 1 year industrial internships that you can apply for. And the Royal Society of Biology also has a fantastic page about this. And the other place, of course, is LinkedIn, which is a professional social networking platform. You have to be over 16 to be on it, but you can go and search there as well. Now, I wanted to talk about graduate and postgraduate study. If you're an A-level student and you're thinking about what degree to do and you're interested in science, I would suggest that you choose a degree that has got a lot of variety, where you can do modules in different disciplines, maybe not just biology, maybe chemistry, maybe physics, maybe computing as well. But more importantly, see if you can find one that includes a year out in industry or a research institute, or consider an integrated master. So getting the practical experience is really important, not only for you to understand whether you enjoy it, but it looks great on your CV and it really, really helps with getting jobs afterwards. Also consider doing a PhD. Now, I want to talk about this because a lot of people are worried about doing PhDs, and I know it's a question that I get asked by a lot of parents as well. So when you're doing a PhD, whether it's in a university or in a research institute like ours, you don't actually pay fees if you're a UK-based student, and you often get bursaries or studentships. So for example, at my institute, the PhD students get a bursary of something like £28,000, which is tax-free, which is very, very generous, and they don't pay any fees. If after doing all of this and you've done some experience and maybe you've even done a PhD, you decide that working in a lab is not for you, it's fine. All of these things are really good to have on under your belt and on your CV, because there are lots of alternative careers. So I just also, before I wanted to go on to that, I wanted to talk about 2 new things that have happened in the last, I say, 5 to 6 years that have exploded in academic research, and that is bioinformatics and artificial intelligence. So this is a science of collecting and analyzing large bits of data. You need to know how to do programming, use of software, and understand artificial intelligence. And At the moment, in biological research, in medical research, we're using a lot of AI and bioinformatics. It helps us identify genes associated with diseases. It helps us identify genes that are differently expressed in different parts of our body. We can predict the structure of proteins based on their amino acid sequence. And it's really, really important about predicting potential drug targets and designing new drugs. So, if at the end of this, you have done a science degree, maybe you've got a PhD, but you don't want to work at the lab in the lab, there are so many different careers you can do. So science publishing is a really big one. So you can go and work for one of the big journals like Cell or Nature, or be involved in scientific writing at some of the societies and institutes. It's very competitive, and usually a master's or a PhD or a master's is very useful to have in scientific publishing. There's science policy working for government and other professional bodies. Science requires a lot of funding, and there are administrative bodies and research councils that help decide who gets money, and they need scientists to decide, because scientists put forward a proposal to get funding. Someone needs to look at that and decide and work on committees. So here are some examples there. Obviously, there's teaching. We need great science teachers. So if you're interested, go into teaching as well. You might need additional qualifications for teaching. There's science communication and outreach. So event managers, public engagement managers, science writers, and journalists. Now, those are all the science-related careers. I'm coming towards the end of last few slides now. So the other careers that people really appreciate someone who's had a scientific background or scientific training. One big one is management consultancy, and people with PhDs are particularly sought because they know that you know how to analyze data, that you're logical, and that you can work very systematically as well. Intellectual property and patent law. This is a really big field right now. Sometimes people do additional qualifications after doing a science degree, which may be to do with patent law. Medical sales in the pharmaceutical industry helps to have a scientific background. Recruitment control consultants and people advising scientific careers. And then, of course, manufacturing and production. So health and safety, product development and quality management. All of these things really help if you have a background in science. So there are some useful links that I've put up here. And what we will do is when this video is posted online on YouTube, we will put these up as well. But these are for you to also look at. So all of these links and sources. And I'm going to just end there and say thank you all very much for listening. I hope you have some questions. If you have questions, please do ask them. Anything that's raised, any questions that you may have, anything that you're not sure of. If I'm able to, I will try and answer. And I'm now going to stop sharing and hand back to Smita.
Thanks, Rajvee. That was amazing. I think I'm going to change career now. It's never too late, right?
Never too late, never too late.
There was so much stuff. One of the questions I was thinking as you were talking was, when did you decide that you wanted to be a scientist? What age?
So I think when I was doing my A levels, I had a really, really amazing biology teacher. And I think that's when I found it really fascinating, understanding how our bodies worked and the wonder of it and how complicated it is and how can it all work, you know. So I think that was when I decided I wanted to do a science degree. So that was my journey. And then I think the second time, and by the way, that teacher, he stayed in his career for many years, and I tracked him down a few years ago, and I invited him to the crick because I really do think he inspired me. And I think it's something I didn't appreciate at the time. I started appreciating, and many of the parents who are on will understand, is when your children have amazing teachers in a particular subject, they will often pursue that subject. And this is why I'm really keen that we have really good science teachers as well, right? The second time would be when I did my degree. And it was really good to do after my second year. My third year, I spent in an industrial placement. That's when I actually worked in a lab. I saw what it meant day in, day out, and I really loved it. I just loved every aspect of it. And that's when I decided to do a PhD. So those two times.
Thank you. We've got a question from Arti Shah. I think you've sort of answered it partly. Did you always know you wanted to be a scientist when you were 16? And the second part of Arti's question is, if you're studying biology, do you need another science subject at A levels?
So at 16, no, I would say I didn't know. So when I was doing my GCSEs, I hadn't decided that, you know, I liked sciences, but I liked lots of other subjects. And it was tough for me to decide what A levels I wanted to do. But once I made that decision to do the science A levels, then it was clear which pathway I was going to. I also knew that I didn't want to be a medic or a pharmacist because those careers really didn't appeal to me. So I think early on, I probably knew I wanted to do something apart from that. And of course, then scientific research is the obvious one. In terms of other, so A level, so Aarti, I think you're asking about A level subjects. I think one of the most useful subjects to do in today's world of science is maths. I would always encourage people thinking about any STEM subject now to do maths. I hated doing maths A level. I would say I wasn't very good at it. But nowadays, if I look at all of our PhD students at the CRIC, they are all keenly learning bioinformatics, machine learning, programming, writing algorithms, and AI is everywhere now. And it's I would say the bioinformaticians that work at the CRIC, they're the hardest to recruit. They get premium pay, and the ones that have a biology background are really, really sought after both in pharmaceutical industries and in academic research, and that is only going to grow. So I would recommend doing another science if you were going to do it. The combination I did, which was maths, chemistry, and biology, probably is one of the best ones. I don't know enough about university admissions now when you're going to do a biochemistry degree, but I'm assuming you would need biology and chemistry. I don't know if it's still true. There was a time that when you did medicine, you didn't need biology, but I don't know if that's still true. But I think for science, obviously there are different types of science. So there are people that just do chemistry, and you have organic chemists and chemists, you do PhDs in chemistry, you might not need biology. And so maybe you don't necessarily need it. I'm not the best place to answer this. I guess it's what the current advice is that your schools give you and what the university admissions require right now.
Kaylin, I think you've got a question there from Vikas.
Yeah, so Vikas asked, what are good uni courses for a student studying maths, further maths, and physics at A level?
Anything to do with computing, bioinformatics, artificial intelligence, but a lot of uni courses, I believe, because they're very modular, you can get exposed to other disciplines. And I would encourage people to be as broad in their knowledge as much as they can for as long as they can. So dabble if you can in other subjects to get some understanding of biology, of chemistry while you're at uni, if those courses allow you to do it. I did a degree called biotechnology, and the reason I did that course at that time was I could do every subject. So I could do computing, maths, fermentation, biology, inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, and genetics and plant genetics, because I didn't know which field of science I wanted to go into. So it gave you a little taster of everything. And from that, I realized the things I really didn't like and the things that I really did like. So my advice is always don't specialize too early if you can help it. But that's my own personal advice.
Okay. We have another question from MS to, are there any other presenters talking about other STEM subjects? We will be. We've just started, and then we're going to go through some other presentations from people in different aspects of science careers. So that, just watch this space.
Yeah.
Kaylin, is there another question? I think there is.
Yeah, there is. So there's question from Artie again, which was, what university did you go to, and was it easy to find a placement in a science-based degree? And also, how was it to be getting a job at the end of the degree, and what is your pay?
Okay, now good questions. So I'll just there's a lot in there, aren't there? So I went to the University of London, King's College. That's where I did my degree. It was an integrated, so it had a placement year, and the universities that have normal industrial placements part of their degree already have relationships with research institutes or pharma quite often, where they're used to placing students. Now, I don't know if this is still the case. I believe it is. But whichever university you go to, if they are offering an industrial placement, do find out, are you expected to find it yourself? Will they help you? Do they have relationships with companies to do that? I do recommend it, because if you've gone straight through from GCSE to A level to degree, after a while you just get fed up of studying. And also having that year out, you get paid for a bit, you go into the world of work, you have time to really think about what you want to do, and it does give you time to reflect. The job for me was quite easy. I did a PhD, and it was quite easy to get academic research positions. The key is, if you've worked in reputable labs, famous labs, and you've published papers, which I was very fortunate to do in high impact journals, you're attractive to people. And in terms of pay, academic research, I would say, is not as well paid at all as somewhere like if you go to AstraZeneca or GlaxoSmithKline, but that is not always the case in all parts of the world. So I think you need to decide what you want to do. And the other thing is, there are people now in our institute that actually do consultancy work for pharmaceutical companies, that have got patents with pharmaceutical companies, that have actually made their own spin-outs and created their own companies as well. So they're doing very, very well. There's a lot of partnership that way. And you can go from working in an academic institute. So there are PhD students that the CRIC produces, many of whom do go to work for pharma and biotech and startups, or go on to become management consultants or do something completely different. You shouldn't feel that it limits you. What you're doing is finding out what you are about and who you are as a person and what you want to do.
We have Vikas asking another question. We hear a lot about degree apprenticeships nowadays. Is it better to go for degree apprenticeships or for regular university courses?
So this is a great question. I have to say, I think this is quite new. And what I don't know about in science, and maybe this is something, Smita, that you could get someone to come in and talk about. I haven't come across in where I work or anyone who's done this, because at the moment for academic research, for science, it's still, you do a degree and then you do a PhD. I think there are degree apprenticeships. I don't think there are enough at the moment, and they're not that well established, but I think it would be really worth finding out. And I'm sorry I can't answer your question, but unfortunately, my experience is obviously with the more standard university courses, but I understand why people want to do them. What I would say is, when you're doing an apprenticeship degree, you're working and you're doing a degree. And for many people, it's a way to get ahead, because you're earning a salary, you come out, you've already got the experience. So one of the advantages of degree apprenticeships is that you've got the experience. Quite a lot of people during COVID came out of degrees where they didn't have the practical experience because they couldn't go and work in a lab, and they did really find it tough. And I think in any work situation now, people always ask for experience now.
So I think that's our next talk, isn't it? We'll have to find some people to
Exactly.
give more information for our next talk.
Yeah.
Kaelan?
Yeah, I think we've got another question from Ritika, who's asking, how do you see the field changing over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, it's a really exciting time in science. So we've had some big advents that have really revolutionized how science in at least in medical research. So one is something called gene editing. You guys may have heard of it. It's a way of changing the gene sequences within our cells that is actually quite new. And it's being used now to treat sort of things like sickle cell disease and therapies for other diseases and lymphomas. The other one is something that came after COVID, which is RNA technology and RNA medicine, so messenger RNA. I think that is quite exciting as well. And then the big one that I already mentioned, artificial intelligence and bioinformatics. And that is going to revolutionize drug development and drug therapies and enable, I think, more personalized medicine to happen. It's actually a really exciting time to be a scientist. The field is moving so fast, and just the technologies that are available to us to ask scientific questions, some of them were not even available 3 years ago, 5 years ago, which means you can ask much more complicated questions and get more precise answers now.
Thank you. Aryan would like to know, do you need any medical knowledge or other disciplines to be a scientist?
So do you mean like to be an actual medic? I'm
Yeah, I
assuming.
think any
Um,
knowledge.
No, you don't. I mean, you need to, do your basic, A levels and study at university. But no, you don't need to be a medic. But what I would say is that there are a lot of medics that become scientists. And what you can understand from that is because they're working with patients, they're doing clinical trials, and some of the best or the most sort of interesting scientists, even at the CRIC, are what we call clinical research fellows. And many institutes like ours offers PhDs to people who are medics or in the middle of doing medicine, because we want people with a medical background to actually also work with scientists and understand science. But it's not a prerequisite. You don't need to have that knowledge.
Okay, thank you. I hope that's answered your question, Aryan. What would you tell your younger self if you were starting right, now on this career?
Oh my goodness, what would I tell my younger self? I mean, I think I was very lucky in that I think I made the right decisions at the right time, but it was a little bit by luck. You have to imagine, because I've been around a long time, we didn't have internet, we didn't have access to YouTube videos, we didn't have access to all the resources that people have now. So there was a lot of stuff I didn't know, you know. In the end, I don't think it held me back, but I just think I would just say to my younger self, get on with it and just, have fun and just enjoy your scientific career. I didn't know it was going to work out this way. I am very fortunate. So yeah.
And Aryan would like to know what your current experiment is about.
So one of my current experiments, I'm going off to a conference actually next week, is sometimes we have to recreate what happens in the human body in test tubes to study them, in the lab. And so sometimes we have to recreate some of the types of changes that happen to DNA in small bits of DNA in a test tube. So I've been working on a technique to create these bits of DNA that can be used by DNA repair enzymes specifically in a specific way. And I'm quite excited about it because it's a really quick and easy way to make these substrates, but before it was very difficult to make them. Sorry, I can't explain it in a better way. It's very technical, but that's what I literally have been working on, and I am doing a presentation and a poster to take to a conference where there's going to be scientists that work in our field from all over the world, and I will tell them about it.
Okay, thank you. I'm just thinking, like you said, no day is different, and every day you've got something new, and you're very passionate and excited. But at any point in your career, did you think this is not for me?
I don't know if I thought this is not for me, but I definitely thought this is hard and I'm not enjoying it. Basically, what you've got to understand is a lot of science, a lot of what you do day in, day out, either doesn't work, or it gives you a result you weren't expecting and you don't understand, or gives you a completely different answer that makes you rethink what you do. 90% of what we do is a bit like banging your head against a brick wall, because you need to make that breakthrough. You need to come up with something clever or different, or be a little lucky as well. But when you get that 10% and you get that result, that's the gold dust. That's what progresses knowledge. That's what means that you can publish your work. And if you're like me, that's enough to sustain you. But there are times when nothing's working, or things that worked before that you did without
Yes.
thinking about it suddenly stop working, and you do not understand why. And part of your job as a scientist is to take a step, take a deep breath, take a step back, and go from first principles, and then work out exactly what the
So
issue is.
you need to be resilient, don't you? You need to be resilient.
Extremely
Yeah.
resilient. You could work
Um,
really long hours and have nothing to show for it.
Arti would like to know, does the CRIC offer summer placements for 16-year-olds to experience this?
Not for 16-year-olds. I mean, the thing is, in the CRIC, well, they have some summer placements which they do for younger, I would say GCSE students, but they tend to limit it to the borough we're in, which is Camden, and they tend to offer it to Camden school children from disadvantaged backgrounds, or backgrounds that would never normally have these opportunities. A lot of places have stopped allowing, because of insurance and health and safety purposes, people younger than 18 in labs. Okay. It's not exclusive, but that is something that's happened more recently, and it's to do with health and safety, because we work obviously with a lot of dangerous things in the lab, and there's a lot of regulation around that. So the CRIC, I would say no. And I can't even bring under 18-year-olds to look around the lab. I do have visitors, and I do have students that I bring round, but they have to be older. So maybe you would have better luck in like healthcare settings, or something like that. So that is one of the limitations in science, that it's hard to get work experience as a 16-year-old. But when you're older, you should be able to.
Kaylin, are there any more questions?
Actually, one from me for this one.
Yeah.
But obviously you've worked on different, I'm going to say, experiments and projects. What's one of the coolest things you've discovered or broken through in whilst doing your research?
Oh my God, there's a few. So it's something I did. I talked about this industrial placement. So I worked on a cancer cell line there, and I did some experiments during that 1 year that ended up being really significant, which I didn't realize at the time, because we were trying to recreate the human gut, but in a Petri dish, in order to study how drugs can be taken in, when you eat, have a drug, and how it gets into the body. And the interesting thing about that bit of work, and it was very exciting because I got something to work that was quite significant. I didn't realize it fully significant until later on. But that publication that has that data in is still cited today regularly, because people that are studying certain drugs and how they work still use that model system. So that's one exciting thing. Another exciting thing has to be when I was trying to study a protein involved in DNA repair. And this was a bacterial protein. I started off working in bacteria. We purified it. We knew it was important, but we couldn't really get it to work properly in the test tube, and we couldn't work out why. And I realized it was to do with it needed a specific DNA sequence to work on. And that was really exciting, because all of a sudden, from it not working, it suddenly worked really, really well. And that was something that in the field hadn't really been realized at the time, that the DNA sequence was important. So that's another one. Two examples. There's too many to cite, but those two I think I can explain to you guys in a way that you can understand.
Thank you. I don't think there are any more questions, and we're coming to the end of the hour's talk. I'd like to thank everybody that joined us, and I hope that was useful. Please do let us know if you have any questions. You can email smitha.j.shah@oshwal.org, or even in the chat. I'll put my email in a minute. If there's, I think we've already got one talk. Someone wants to hear about apprenticeship, so I think we'll see if we can do that. I also want to thank the team behind the cameras. Kilit's not here, so Kaylin, thank you for co-hosting. Hasmukh Frey and Kavit, thank you so much for sorting this out for us and making sure we've got 2 new messages. Hold on. Just saying thank you. Ria says thank you, it was informative, and Sejal says thank you for an information talk. So the next one we'll advertise it once it's all up and running. I think that's it. Anything else we want to say, Rajvee?
Nope. Thank you. And I just wanted to say, if anyone's still online, if you want to come and visit the crick, do contact me. And then we can try and organise something. You need to be over 18 to come up to the labs, but I'm always happy to host and speak to anyone that's interested in a scientific career.
Rajvee, if you just put your email, your work email, then they can contact you.
Sure.
Maybe, yeah. Whichever email you want them to send information to. And thank you, Rajvee, for your time. And I'm really inspired, but I think I'm too old to start again.
No worries, never too late. But yeah,
I don't think I've got a scientific brain either. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.